Hey guys! So today's topic comes from an anonymous question, and thank you so much, anonymous, whoever you are, for sending me this question. I know you told me not to answer it today, but I'm gonna answer it today anyways, because, you know, when I am like I am, I gotta keep moving, gotta keep trying to push forwards, otherwise you just kind of end up in a slump, and gotta keep rolling, gotta keep moving. So I really appreciate you sending me this question. It gives me something to do, it's gonna keep me motivated to keep moving, and I don't know, I really appreciate it. And, you know, just the fact that you sent me a question means a lot to me. So thank you so much, and I guess I'll actually get to your question if I can read it from this far. Could I make a video on how I can recognize a hormone strike and what you can do about it? And so the hormone strike I was referring to in the last video was just Mia was kind of having a bad hormone fluctuation day. You know, she just turned 2, so she's kind of getting hit with, you know, adulthood, adulthood, so kind of birth form of puberty, so she's kind of a little bit crazy, and it kind of it fluctuates. Some weeks she's really good, and others she's kind of bad, and she's seeming to be in a good mood today, but yeah. Anyways, okay, so how do we recognize a hormone strike? And like how is this going to be different than just knowing that your bird's being really aggressive and comfy? And it's kind of, there's no one thing that's going to tell you. It's a mixture of things that you're going to kind of start to piece together and go, okay, maybe this is what's going on. And since, you know, a lot of the things are like raised aggression, irritability, their sears can get crusty, and just sometimes they can start getting really picky with what they eat, and just interaction they don't really want anymore. And so you really need to acknowledge the entirety of the situation, and, you know, take everything into account to really figure out if this is hormones or if this is just something behavioral that's going wrong. And so a lot of things you need to take into account to really make sure that this is a hormone strike, and we don't just want to be sitting here with a bird that's getting aggressive and more aggressive and more aggressive every day, thinking it's hormones when it's not. So obviously one of the things to take into account is the season, typically spring, but it changes with every parrot species. Some of them mate more than once a year, some of them only mate once a year, some of them mate in the spring, some of them mate later in the year. So you really need to research your specific species and when they mate, and that will typically be when they're going to have just like the highest hormone rages, and they're going to be wanting to breed, they're going to be wanting to nest. And people seem to think that hormones are only a problem with female birds because of issues like egg binding, but hormones are a very serious issue for male birds as well, because they can start participating in things like masturbation. Yes, birds can masturbate. No, not the way people do. Yes, that's a thing, and that puts them at a risk for, you know, a lot of bacterial infections and things, and so really need to make sure that we're not inducing hormones in any way. Typically, you'll notice your bird's cere may start to get really flaky, and it's really easy in some species like budgies, like I mentioned previously, is the hypertrophy, their ceres will go from a typical color to really brown and crusty and flaky, and so it's really easy to tell with budgies when they're starting to get breedy. But with birds like parrotlets or cockatoos, it can be really difficult to tell because their ceres don't really change color, at least not as obviously. What will happen though is they will tend to get pretty flaky. The other thing is kind of their general irritability. If it's an aggression problem, they're typically getting mad for one particular reason or a couple small reasons. Like with parrotlets, rising aggression happens with wiggling fingers or crinkling materials, and that can cause rising aggression whenever they're presented with those things. And if it goes on long enough, that can tie into other problems. So you really need to make sure that this aggression that they're having isn't keyed on to one particular object. Like some birds will get just really angry around one person, or they'll get really angry around the way you walk towards them. And it's one particular thing, that would be something that's a behavioral form of aggression. So for things like handing them your hand, and if they're showing you body language to go away, an irritable hormonal bird might show those signs for a split second and then just go straight to biting you because they don't really have the tolerance to deal with telling you to go away anymore. They're just gonna do the fastest way they know to make you leave. So that's sort of how we know that's hormones going on. There tends to be multiple different kinds of aggression going on, and it doesn't seem to have one necessarily root cause. It's just a more general irritability. So just anything that's sort of nesty related, we want to get rid of. So the happy huts, the nest boxes, the soft little fuzzy beds you made them, anything they can really get nesty in and get comfortable and start brooding. So those are things we want to eliminate from the environment for both male and female species. It's not just females that will get nesty. The other thing we can do is lighting. And believe it or not, birds do have an internal clock. It's in their pineal gland in their brain, and it recognizes things like number of hours of light, the kind of temperatures, and just it takes in general environmental changes that show them when it's a key time to breed, that this is the season we breed, that now is the time to start getting ready to have some babies. And so what we can do is kind of trick that gland into thinking that it's winter, that it's not a good time to breed. So turn this back to winter hours, 10 to 12 hours of sleep. I believe it's like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. might be the number. I'm not quite sure on that, I've forgotten. Yeah, I think it's something like that. But just keep them on a solid schedule and don't let it deviate all too much throughout the season. Otherwise that gland will kick in and tell them, this is the time when I need to breed, this is the key time that I can have eggs and start a nest. The other thing is what they're eating. And typically when they're about to have babies, they'll really stock up on, fatty foods and calcium, and they'll just kind of overeat a little bit because they really need to keep up their energy in order to be able to produce these eggs, because a lot of their nutrients are going to go straight into producing these eggs, and then all their food is going to go straight to feeding the babies. You need to monitor your bird's food and make sure that they aren't getting excessive amounts of fats and just general things that aren't totally necessary for the diet. So you want to make sure they're getting well-rounded vegetables, you're going to make sure they're on a good pelleted diet, that they're getting enough calcium in case something like egg laying does happen. The thing to remember is if your bird does lay an egg, it's not that you failed, because some birds will just do it, and there's like this common myth going around, and I'm not sure where it originated, where people think that birds won't lay an egg if you don't give it a nest, and that's not true. They will lay anywhere. They will lay it in a seed dish, they will lay it on the floor. I mean, they will lay anywhere they could feasibly put an egg. They do not need to have a mate in order to have an egg or in order to start masturbating or having bad hormonal reactions. They will do it any time that they feel is the time to be laying eggs. And some birds this is like a major problem, especially in species like cockatiels. It's just a huge problem with them, is they can start to excessively lay eggs and just keep going until their bodies just can't take it anymore, and they don't have enough calcium, and the egg can get stuck in their cloaca. And what happens then is they can't pass the egg. Some birds can actually die from this. They would have to go into surgery, and there's multiple different procedures to have it done. Sometimes they don't actually need to do a surgical procedure to get it out. Other times they do, and it's just a major thing we really don't want to be happening. So the other thing that can help with that is with the egg binding is there's fake eggs that you can get, and they look like real eggs, they're weighed like real eggs, and you can put those in with whatever eggs your bird has laid so far to make them believe there's a full clutch. Removing the eggs will not stop this egg laying. That will make them lay more, because what it kind of simulates to them is a predator has taken their babies, and so they'll lay more to continue their genetic line. They need to believe that they have a full clutch in order to stop laying. And typically, I mean, some birds will just get a bit excessive, but typically once they've laid a full clutch for whatever their species' typical clutch is, they will stop laying. So this means if they lay one egg, you give them 5 or whatever their typical full clutch is. Some birds it's only 2, so that can help out with general hormones as well if the hormones have already kind of hit their peak. When they are starting to get breedy, when they are starting to get nesty, we shouldn't touch them anywhere other than their head. And we generally shouldn't be excessively touching them anywhere other than their head anyways. Like if you're just doing it just like once a day, or if you're doing it just to examine them, like that's fine, but you shouldn't be sitting there like excessively rubbing and like preening other parts of your bird's body. why you shouldn't do this is because those parts of the body are reserved for their mate. Once they hit sexual maturity, they don't really want to be touched by strangers. This is an exception in some species. Some species do kind of get snuggly, and that just kind of carries over into adulthood. It's just kind of their natural behavior. But for most species, once they hit sexual maturity, being touched on their backs, under their wings, on their rumps is all reserved for their mate. And the worst one is under the wings and on top of the back. And that's because, surprise, that's where the male mounts her. So when you're doing that, you're kind of saying, hey, let's get it on. So how do we handle these situations? When our birds are getting aggressive, or they are starting to get territorial, and they are starting to get irritable, and it's just because of hormones and it's not something behaviorally, we kind of don't do anything. Because this is something that's just going to happen. It's not going to last forever. It's just, if you handle things right and you just remove all the hormonal stimulants from the environment, it will pass once hormone season's over, once they're kind of done, once their hormones have all kind of leveled out. They will calm down over time. We just need to kind of respect them during that time, tread carefully, pay extra caution to their body language, and just really put these precautions in place. When they want to breed, they want to breed, they want to be left alone. So we have to respect that. We just have to leave them alone until their hormones calm down, and they'll come around eventually. So don't force them into doing anything. Don't get mad. Don't get upset. And this is like, hormones can be a lot worse than people make it out to be sometimes. 9 times out of 10, you got your bird from like a breeder or a pet store, and it's a baby, and it's not hit sexual maturity yet, and so it's going to be okay with being touched and moved and being snuggly, and it's going to want to be all over you, because that's okay at that stage in life. But as soon as they hit sexual maturity, a lot of birds will not want that kind of contact anymore. They won't necessarily get really grumpy and aggressive, but they will start acting more like their wild counterparts. They will need to be respected more. You will need to really understand their body language and how to go about that. And it's just not something people expect, and that's a major reason why so many birds are in shelters, is because they hit that age of 2, they go on just these major hormone rampages, and they don't expect it, and they think that their bird is like faulty, and they just ship it off because they couldn't handle the hormones. And it can really be a pain. A lot of things can start inducing a lot of behavioral problems, a lot of aggression problems. If you don't handle those properly, it can spin out of control. It really shouldn't be too much of a problem. They will have mood swings. They will get really grumpy sometimes. They will get to be a handful. It just kind of happens. But it settles down, and it kind of fluctuates with her. She's been having on-off days, and I guess it's normal. It does get over it, and if you're someone that's going through bird hormones right now, I am so sorry. It is okay. It'll get better, I promise. Just, hold it together. You can make it through it, and, we'll all get through it together. We've all had to deal with it. We're one giant community of people who've had to deal with rampaging, horny 2-year-olds with a can opener on their face. So it does get better. They settle down. It's not a permanent state, I promise you. It'll be okay. You can make it through these massive hormones. It'll be alright. But yeah, so it'll all get better eventually, I promise. So that's kind of all I think I really have to say. That's all I can really remember right now. I'm sure I've forgotten something, but that's all I can really get out of my brain today. So thank you so much for sending this question again, little anonymous Anon. I really appreciate it. It gave me something to do, and I hope you got the answer you were looking for. If you didn't, ask me to clarify, and I'll very gladly do that. So thank you so much again. I hope you all enjoyed this video and you learned something. If there's anything I could do to make them better, let me know. If there's a topic you'd particularly like me to talk about, send me a message. And what we've discussed before on that I just published to Tumblr is I will hopefully be making a video that's like a get to know me kind of thing. So if you have questions or things you'd particularly like to know about me, send me a question and just put in brackets, just write vid or video or something, so I know not to answer it directly on Tumblr or YouTube or whatever. So leave a comment or send me a message, just put in brackets, write vid, and I will compile a video answering any and all questions you may have for me, within reason. Let's not get too creepy, okay? Let's draw a line somewhere. But, you know, pretty much anything goes, bird related or not, you know. Go ahead and let's have some fun with this. And so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you had a wonderful time here. I certainly know I did, and I will see you all next time. Bye!